What up, YouTube? It's we already know who this is. This is Wormy. If y'all didn't know, y'all probably don't know. So this is Wormy. I am Wormy. Um, so as we all know, there's a game coming up, Week 14, Indianapolis Colts at Indianapolis. Um, right now, if you look at the Vegas odds, um, I think it's Colts plus 3.5, which means the Colts are favored in this game by 3.5 points. And usually, what Vegas does is because Colts have home field advantage. Um, they'll usually give the home field team about plus 3.5 points. So basically, in reality, this game is more of a pick'em game. It's not really, oh, the Colts are actually really favored. It's just because they have home field advantage, so they get plus 3.5 points from Vegas. And Vegas, they betting on games. You don't mess around with money. They take their bets and they take their odds very seriously. So in reality, this is a pick'em game. Cowboys are not favored in this game. And it's simply because of home field advantage, as I keep saying. Well, what does that mean? That means in this pick'em game, well, when it comes to which team is hotter than the other and things like that, according to Vegas, these two teams are on the same level with each other. None is really hotter than the other. They're both playing at a very high level. And I know the Colts record right now is 7-6, and you look at the Cowboys record and they're 8-5. However, the Colts started off 1-6, so that means they've won 6 of their last 7. They're only lost within that 7 game sample size, being that 0-6 loss to Jacksonville. So if you look at that game, you could potentially look at that game as a blueprint on how to frustrate Andrew Luck and keep this offense out of the end zone and out of pay dirt. Excuse me. But other than that, the Colts have been, or Andrew Luck rather, has been playing just lights out. Is currently in the MVP conversation, which is a lot more than what Dak Prescott is, considering they start off their season 3-5, which is better. Andrew Luck really had a slow start as well. You could say he had a slower start than Dak, and that would be a valid point. But an even more valid point would be to say that Andrew Luck is currently playing hotter than Dak Prescott. Arguably with less talent around him. No, with less talent around him, actually. Seeing as how T.Y. Hilton, 5'9" wide receiver, who's actually by Pro Football Focus is ranked as the number 10 wide receiver. Amari Cooper, on the other hand, unfortunately I'm not currently sure what his ranking is. However, I'm sure it would be high, but maybe not as high as T.Y. Hilton. When it comes to the whole season, because Pro Football Focus doesn't look at just the 5 game stretch of which Amari Cooper has been playing with the Cowboys, or excuse me, the 6 game stretch, because his first game was in Tennessee. They look at the season as a whole. So with that very slow start in Oakland, his ranking probably wouldn't be as high. And besides those two right there, Ty and Amari, you look at the O-line. I'd say Andrew Luck's O-line has been better in both the running and passing game. However, they have Marlon Mack running the football. They do not have an Ezekiel Elliott running the football, who is a Pro Bowl, All-Pro running back. And right now, Zach Martin, All-Pro guard, Tyron Smith, All-Pro tackle, but they haven't been playing as well as they should have in recent memory. So I think it's a fair argument to say that they have a better line. But as far as wide receivers, tight ends, they have us beat. But so when it comes to offense, with Andrew Luck at the helm, you could say that Colts have a better offense. I think that's a fair thing to say. On defense, though, is where the question marks start. And is where the question should actually stop as well, strangely enough, when it's the Colts, because in recent memory the Colts have had an awful defense. Well, it's on defense is where we take a left turn. Now, the Cowboys are currently ranked second in points allowed, and I believe they're ranked fifth in total defense. Like fifth against the second against the rush, fifth against the pass, or something like that. Something crazy, um, like that. Really, really good stats. And the Colts, currently, they're statistically are not as ranked as highly as the Cowboys. However, since week 7, they are the number one ranked defense in the NFL, and that is something you cannot ignore. And when I saw that, when I heard that, I was like, wait a minute. I was like, who on that defense besides Darius Leonard, their second overall pick from this last year's draft, is making a name themselves? Who else on that defense is a name? Um, if you follow the Colts even a little closely, you would know that they also have Malik Hooker. But if you follow just as closely, you would also know that Malik Hooker hasn't panned out to what his draft capital would assume. Picked number one in the first round, 15th overall. Darius Leonard the second round, 46 overall. And Malik Hooker just not has panned out as well as Darius Leonard has. However, he is still a very talented guy, and there's a reason he was picked 15th overall. So they do have some names, but as far as establishing names and established names, because Darius Leonard he's only been playing for not even a whole year yet, but according to Pro Football Focus, he is actually the fifth ranked linebacker in the league, and that's huge for a rookie to be ranked that highly and thought of that highly by Pro Football Focus, which has all the stats, all the metrics, all the analytics that you could ask for in the NFL. That's insane. But like me, and I'm sure like any other casual football fan who was looking at the schedule and looking at the Cowboys 8-5 facing the Indianapolis Colts 7-6, would not think of all of these things. I might not know all of these things as I have researched and read and all these things, done my time to looking into the Colts, looking into their stats, how well they played, etc., etc. So when I heard that the Colts defense was ranked is the number one defense since week 7, that blew my mind. As someone who considers themselves a football junkie, I was like I was kind of naive, thinking I was like, oh, it's the Colts. Since like 2014-13, they just had awful defenses. They're gonna continue to have awful defense, and I'm sure Dallas can exploit them in some sort of way in this upcoming game on Sunday. So if you thought like me, frankly, you'd be wrong in thinking that. Matt Eberflus, the defensive coordinator for Indianapolis, which is actually the linebackers coach from Dallas, from the Cowboys, has this defense just playing amazing, playing lights out. Schematically, they're just all connected. They're all playing with a lot of hustle, great pursuit. Everybody's playing fast, not having to think a lot. Very similar to what the Cowboys do on defense and how they play. Everybody's connected. Everybody's in pursuit of the ball carrier at all times, and everybody is just playing fast and not doing a whole lot of thinking, and more just playing physical. So behind me, I actually have a list of all the Colts defensive picks, all the defensive players that they picked in the draft from, excuse me. So just like any other fan, you see the Indianapolis Colts, you see Andrew Luck, and you don't necessarily think of defense. Defense is not what comes to mind when you think about the Indianapolis Colts and the organization and their culture and all that. Andrew Luck being who he is, an amazing MVP level quarterback, especially playing right now, which is something that the defense is gonna have to key in on. But that's not why we're here. We're here currently because, like I said, when you think of the Indianapolis Colts, you don't think of defense, and that's where I'm gonna have to change your mind. Simply for the fact of this big list behind me, and what this list is since 2014, 15, 16, 17, and 18, they have drafted 40 players. And 20 of those players have been on defense. Jonathan Newsom, Andrew Jackson, DeJohn Smith, Clayton Gathers, David Perry, T.J. Green, Malik Hooker, like I said, Quincy Wilson. And then the next year, they don't have a first round pick, so they draft Leonard and all Darius Leonard, their linebacker, which is currently playing amazing. All these players that they've drafted, they have spent a ton of draft capital towards that defense and towards turning that defense around, much like Dallas has. So in past years, just like the Colts, you don't necessarily think of defense. So and slowly, the Cowboys have been turning around every year. They're getting a little bit better, drafting players and just building up their talent and things like that. And behind the scenes, we're focusing on Dallas. Behind the scenes, the Colts have been doing the same thing. They've been doing the same thing, drafting guys, growing, developing their own players, and just keep trying to hit guys. And all these blue check marks right now are actually all the men from the list of 20. They currently have 12 of these 20 drafted players on their active roster right now. And now it doesn't necessarily mean that they hit on them in the draft. It just means that 12 of those guys were good enough, or they feel good about keeping on their active roster. So 12 out of 20, that's 60%. That's a big number. 60% of your picks making the roster. That's a little unheard of in the NFL, actually, to be quite honest with you. So when we talk about, when I said Pro Football Focus and I mentioned them, Pro Football Focus does a lot in the analytics and metrics department and tracking players. And one thing they love to do is they love to rank NFL players. And right here I have the rankings. These blue letters are the rankings of the players and the rankings of their current position. Now you have 1, 2, 3 guys that are currently unranked, and that is due to things like playing time, and just their lack of skill, maybe a little average or below average skill. And when you have that coupled with not a lot of playing time, or maybe even no playing time, that causes you to have an unranked ranking. But when you have guys like Clayton Gathers and Malik Hooker playing like the number 28th ranked safety, Clayton Gathers playing like the number 37th ranked safety. Your cornerback, Quincy Wilson, you know how many cornerbacks there are in the league? There's a ton. And he's playing like the 48th ranked quarterback. And I think, you think about, there's 47 other cornerbacks ranked above him. Still, you have at the very least 30, not 32. There's 32 teams. The league has to have 2 cornerbacks starting for that team. 32 times 2, 64, and he's the 48th ranked. It's not too bad of a ranking. And plus, with a lot of teams playing nickel, bringing in a third cornerback, that in today's NFL, being the nickel corner, being that third corner, is really more of a starting position with how many times you see that 3 wide receiver set personnel in the field nowadays. So all these ranked guys on here, 28, 48, 37, 42, Anthony Walker Jr., their 5th round pick, picked 161 in last year's 2017 draft, playing the ranked number 42 linebacker in the league. And then Darius Leonard playing as your 5th ranked linebacker in the league. That's intense. That's insane. I look back, since I don't have Pro Football Focus, I don't know if you knew this, but Pro Football Focus is actually it's actually something that you need to pay for, kind of like NFL Game Pass. It's a paid subscription. Now they have some very basic things out there, like their ranking. They also have a color scale all the way from rookie to elite, and a lot of these ranked guys on here are playing at an above average level. When I go back and I look at the website and I look at these players' names, all of them next to their names have the color correlated with above average. And when you have that many players that are these are just young players that they drafted on their own, playing at that kind of level, you're going to have a very good defense, if not maybe even elite defense, considering that they've been playing since week 7. Like I said, the number 1 ranked defense since week 7. So all that being said, and we look at their win last week versus the red hot Texans, dropping them to 9-4. Going back and looking at that game, they're frustrating. Their own number 4, Deshaun Watson, all night. They're frustrating him all night, keeping him in the pocket, blitzing him, not letting him get into a rhythm. And they have a lot of similar things that the Cowboys have. They have a quarterback who can run, who can get out of the pocket and make plays out of the pocket. They have a number 1 wide receiver in, what's his name? Damn it, I'm sorry, but their number 1 wide receiver too. He was a very good wide receiver, just like Amari Cooper. They have a good, maybe not a very good or all pro like Zeke, but they have a good running back in Lamar Miller and a good running game, and they were able to slow all those things down. And Deshaun Watson actually has better arm talent than Dak Prescott. They were able to frustrate him as well. Frustrate him. Imagine what they're going to do to Dak Prescott, who is, and when it comes to talent, who is an average quarterback. Maybe not so much, in the fourth quarter, when it comes down to making plays and stuff like that. Yeah, he's better, but when it comes to just pure talent, he's an average quarterback. So if they're able to do and things like that and frustrate Deshaun Watson the way they did and beat that team, who you could make a very valid argument that team is actually hotter and better than the Cowboys, then I don't know about you guys, but I'm a little worried about this week's game, going to Indianapolis, not having home field advantage. So it's a tough one. It's a tough one. As a Cowboys fan, I'm always optimistic. I always say optimistic, but I try to be realistic too, and that's why I do things like this. I look up other teams and I try to figure out and see what the Cowboys are going up against. So this is just to give you an idea of what they're up against, and so you're going into the game a little bit more knowledgeable and seeing that the Colts, you may see their record and it doesn't look like a great record, but most of the time the saying goes, you are what your record shows, and that can be true. They had a really slow start, and the Cowboys can go back and look at those games and maybe try to do some similar things to what those teams did to the Colts. But when you're hot, you're hot. Don't matter what your record says. Just like the Cowboys, 3-5, 5-game winning streak, 8-5. Colts did a very similar thing. So it's all good luck to the Colts, good luck to the Cowboys, and let's just hope, as the Cowboys have shown in recent weeks, they can formulate a game plan and shut down a very talented, very prolific offense, much like they did with the Saints. But this is a different animal. This is Andrew Luck. His arm talent's a little bit better. He's a little bit bigger. He's faster. He's younger than Drew Brees. But I'm sure, they'll figure out something. I hope they do. I hope they figure out something on offense and on defense to be able to dominate the Colts on both sides of the ball. But we'll see. Hats off to the Colts for the things that they've done. Very similar plan to what the Cowboys have had over the years. Drafting guys and just growing their talent and things like that. So I appreciate you guys for watching the video. I know it's been really long. Sorry for such a long video. I hope you stayed. And if you did, I really appreciate it. You have yourselves a good night and good luck to the Cowboys. Peace.